In this video I will show 2 ways to fix the terrible dead zone and reaction curve of Resident Evil 4 on Xbox Series X and S. What you need for this fix is either an 8bitdo Ultimate controller, or an Xbox Elite Controller Series 2. What we will do is manipulate the reaction curve on both controllers through their respective configuration app. This is not a perfect fix, but it will make the game feel more responsive and fine adjustments easier.
The issue at hand is a combination of a dead zone that is way too big, and a bad reaction curve. This here is the game's native reaction curve. See how it ramps up towards the end, but starts out extremely flat. And look how massive the dead zone is. The reaction curve determines how fast your camera turns, compared to how far you tilt the stick. In RE4's case, once you tilt your stick around 90% to the side, you will start turning at 100% turn speed. However, if you use the acceleration setting, the camera will start speeding up by itself over the course of a few seconds, to give you additional turn speed above of what you use as your aim speed. Tilt your stick only a little, less than around 35% to the side, in RE4's case, and your camera won't turn whatsoever. This is what a dead zone does. It determines the amount of tilt your stick needs to have, for it to signal the game that you want to turn your camera. And look how massive this dead zone is. But even after you pass the dead zone's threshold, your camera will start turning ridiculously slowly, due to how flat the reaction curve is, at the beginning. It can feel like your camera isn't responding to your input, even though you technically are past the dead zone. In order to fix this issue to a degree, we have to manipulate the reaction curve of our controller. First I will show you how to make it feel more responsive on an 8bitdo Ultimate controller. We will do this by changing 2 settings in the controller's configuration app available in the store. First we select a profile. Use one that you do not need for anything else. I will use profile 3 here. Then on the top we will go to the tab labeled sticks. The first thing you have to do here is check the box next to Disable Dead Zone. You should honestly use this for any game you play with the 8bitdo Ultimate, as games themselves have built-in dead zones themselves, making it mostly useless to also have an additional one on your controller. This next change we are going to do is the more important part, however. We will change the outer dead zone of the right stick. Go down to this arrow and move it to the left to at least 85%. If you want it to be even more responsive, you can move it to the left even further. But my recommendation is somewhere between 80% and 85%. This moves the outer dead zone inwards, which in return will squish the reaction curve, as well as the inner dead zone together, towards the center of the stick, making it respond faster to your inputs. Adjust this until it feels responsive enough for you in-game, but do not overdo it, as a big outer dead zone is also not a great thing. After you are done, don't forget to sync this new POR file to your controller here at the bottom. Here is a rough demonstration what the settings change of your 8bitdo will do to the effective reaction curve of Resident Evil 4. By moving the outer dead zone inwards, we are squishing this whole reaction curve towards the center of the stick, making it more linear, and also squishing the inner dead zone towards the center of the stick as well, which effectively makes the dead zone smaller and make your camera respond to your inputs earlier and faster. Here is a rough demonstration what the settings change of your 8bitdo will do to the effective reaction curve of Resident Evil 4. By moving the outer dead zone inwards, we are squishing this whole reaction curve towards the center of the stick, making it more linear, and also squishing the inner dead zone towards the center of the stick as well, which effectively makes the dead zone smaller and make your camera respond to your inputs earlier and faster. The downside of this method is that by increasing the outer dead zone, less of your stick will be usable. At a certain point you will simply reach maximum turn speed, even though you aren't even close to the edge of your stick's movement range. But this is of course already the case even without adjustments, since a large inner dead zone also reduces how much of your stick is actually usable. A large outer dead zone, while still bad, is still not nearly as bad as a large inner dead zone in my opinion. Let's actually look at this in action. On the left you see the default Xbox Series X controller, and on the right the 8bitdo with our adjustments applied. Notice how the reticle reacts way earlier on the 8bitdo, indicating when our stick input is being registered by the game. And due to the squished reaction curve, it also will start turning at higher speeds faster, giving it an additional boost to how responsive the controls feel. Note that it is still far from perfect, but a definitely noticeable improvement while playing. Slow motion replay time. Now let's jump over to the Elite Series 2. Once again choose a profile you do not need for anything else. We will go to the settings of the right stick, where we can change the reaction curve of our controller. For this fix we will choose the aggressive reaction curve, which will make it so that even though you only move your stick a little, the controller will send a higher input value to the game. You can further adjust how aggressive the curve is supposed to ramp up with this slider down here. I would not turn this all the way up, but set it to a setting near the maximum. On the input graph on the right you can see your real stick input in white, compared to the input sent by the stick in orange. As you can see, the input sent by the controller ramps up way faster than it would with the default linear setting. This is roughly what the adjusted curve will look like. The downside for this method, compared to the 8-bit DOS curve squishing, is that we are not able to affect the inner dead zone of the controller here. Sadly, the Elite Series 2 has no way to adjust the outer dead zone, and in return the inner dead zone will stay the same massive size as on a default controller. However, thanks to the aggressive reaction curve setting, the subjective responsiveness of the game will increase, due to the fact that the native reaction curve of RE4 also massively contributes to how unresponsive the camera feels. With this aggressive reaction curve we are eliminating one of the two factors that contribute to the sluggish feel of the game. Not as good as the 8bitdo solution where both factors are addressed, but still better than nothing if you happen to have one of these controllers lying around. I hope this will help you enjoy Resident Evil 4 even more. This remake is an amazing game, which is sadly held back by this awful oversight on Xbox consoles. With these controllers and their configuration apps, we at least have a way to lessen the impact of the awful controller values used by Capcom.